Let's jump right into a story from over 1,400 years ago. A story about leadership that pretty much turns our modern ideas of power completely upside down. It's all about a massive, calculated risk that was either going to forge a brand new state or shatter it into a million pieces before it even had a chance to begin.
So, the person at the very center of this whole thing, the one with the weight of the world on his shoulders, he was just a kid, 18. Seriously, let that sink in for a minute. An age where most of us are just figuring things out, he was about to be handed the fate of an entire nation. And there you have it. Not just a trainee, not a junior officer, we're talking supreme commander of an entire army. An army filled with seasoned veterans, senior leaders, men who were literally 3 times his age. So the huge question is, why? Why on earth would a brand new, fragile state make such a wild and frankly reckless-sounding choice?
Well, here's the thing. It wasn't reckless at all. It was actually the final, brilliant move in a very long, very deliberate game. This young leader wasn't some random fluke. He was forged for this very moment almost by design, right from the day he was born.
So, let's meet him. Usama ibn Zayd. And to get why he was chosen, you have to get his background, which for that time and place was completely unconventional. His father was the Prophet's own adopted son. His mother was a freed black woman who was deeply, deeply loved by the Prophet. And Usama himself, he grew up inside the Prophet's home, the very heart of this new world.
So you've got these two clashing worlds. Outside, in the society of the day, everything was about your family tree, your social rank, even the color of your skin. But inside the Prophet's household, none of that mattered. The only things that gave you value were your character, your actual skill, and your integrity. Growing up breathing that air gave Usama a kind of psychological immunity to all the prejudice he was about to face.
And the love the Prophet had for him wasn't some private, quiet affair. No way. He would be out in public, holding Usama on one knee and his own grandson Hassan on the other, praying for them both, for everyone to see. Now, this was more than just affection. This was public relations. This was leadership training. He was actively conditioning the entire community to see this young man for who he was, not where he came from.
And all of that preparation, all that groundwork, it all leads to this very moment, the controversial command. A decision that wasn't just about winning a battle, but about sending a message that was going to define the future of the entire state.
So, why Usama? The choice was so deliberate, and it really boiled down to 3 key things. First, it was symbolic. Usama was being sent to finish the very mission his own father had died trying to complete. Second, it was a massive statement of values, proof that skill matters more than age or your family name. And third, and this is a big one, it was a direct test for everyone else. Would they obey an order they didn't like just because it came from the right authority? You have to understand, the timing here just cranked the pressure up to 1,000. The Prophet was in his final illness. The new state was shaky. And all around them, rival tribes and empires were just watching, like hawks, waiting for the first sign of weakness, the first crack to appear so they could pounce. The stakes just could not have been higher.
And that's exactly why this mission was so much more than a battle. It was really a loyalty test for the entire nation. Were they really committed to these new principles of merit and obedience? Or would they just snap back to their old tribal ways the second things got tough? Everything was riding on this.
And, well, tough arrived almost immediately. Because right after the Prophet passed away, the community's conviction was about to face its greatest test yet.
Even before he died, the Prophet heard the whispers, the grumbling about putting a teenager in charge. So even though he was gravely ill, he got up, went to the people, and gave what's known as the anger sermon. He defended his choice, reminded them they'd done the same thing with Usama's father, and then he said something decisive. He didn't say Usama will be worthy one day. He said he is worthy now, full stop, present tense.
But then the Prophet passed away. The community was just reeling, lost in grief and shock. And suddenly all those strategic fears felt very, very real. Senior leaders started arguing, saying, wait a minute, if we send our main army out of town with an 18-year-old in charge, we're leaving the capital totally defenseless. It looked like a recipe for disaster.
This is where true leadership steps up to the plate. The new caliph, Abu Bakr, was under huge pressure to just call the whole thing off. But his response was just absolute. He said he could not undo a command that the Prophet himself had given, even if it meant they'd be so vulnerable that vultures would come and pick their bones clean. For him, the legitimacy of the command was way more important than any short-term strategic fear. So, Abu Bakr's conviction held strong. And what happened next was one of the most powerful and symbolic scenes in all of early Islamic history. The moment the young commander and his army finally marched out.
I mean, just try to picture this. It's an unforgettable image of this new world order they were trying to build. You have Usama, the 18-year-old commander, sitting high on his horse, ready to lead. And who's walking on the ground next to him, seeing him off? It's Abu Bakr, the elder statesman, the caliph, the new head of the entire state. That single image just completely shattered the old ideas of hierarchy based on age and status. It was all about institutional discipline now.
And then, just when you think it can't get any more radical, it does. Abu Bakr, the caliph, turns to Usama, the commander, and formally asks for his permission to keep another senior companion, Umar, back in the capital to help him run things. The head of state asked his 18-year-old general for permission. It was a masterclass in respecting the chain of command no matter what.
So after all that drama, all the hesitation, what actually happened? Well, Usama led his army, he accomplished all of his objectives quickly and decisively, and he returned victorious. And the number of casualties they took? 0. Not a single soldier was lost. It was a stunning success that completely proved the Prophet's choice right and confirmed Usama's incredible competence.
But Usama's story doesn't just end with a great military victory, because his life teaches us an even deeper lesson about the other side of power, knowing when not to use it.
Later in his life, when the community went through these really painful periods of civil war, Usama made a really important distinction. He was the same guy who had the courage to take on the Roman Empire, a huge external threat, but when the fighting was between fellow Muslims, he chose total restraint. He understood that some wars are just not worth fighting, especially when truth gets mixed with blood.
And that deep conviction came from a powerful lesson he'd learned as a much younger man. The Prophet had once sharply corrected him for killing an enemy soldier who had uttered the declaration of faith at the very last second. That one single rebuke shaped his moral compass for the rest of his life. He vowed he would never again raise his sword against anyone who identified as a Muslim.
So let's just pull back for a second and look at the enduring legacy of this one pivotal event. Its impact on the psychology, on the stability of that new state was just immense.
When you really break it down, you can see how the outcome of this single test secured the new state in 3 crucial ways. The successful expedition, that preserved the state's prestige. It showed its enemies it wasn't weak. Abu Bakr's firm stand on principle, that preserved its legitimacy, proving its commands were absolute. And the companions finally obeying the order, that preserved its unity, holding everything together when it could have easily fallen apart.
And all of this leaves us with a really timeless question, doesn't it? Choosing Usama as commander broke every social rule of the time: age, status, family, but it was done specifically to establish a new and better set of rules. It makes you wonder, when is breaking with tradition not just an option but an absolute necessity if you want to build a better world?